right now, in this very moment, you have the power to change your entire life. You have within you the ability to transform your thoughts, your feelings, and your reality simply by changing the words you speak to yourself each morning. Those first moments when you wake up, when your mind is fresh and open, when the day stretches before you like a blank canvas, these are the most important moments of your entire day. Your thoughts create your reality. This is not some mystical concept or wishful thinking. This is the fundamental truth of how life works. Every single thing that happens to you begins first as a thought in your mind. Every success, every failure, every relationship, every opportunity, it all starts with the conversations you have with yourself. Most people wake up and immediately begin the same old mental patterns. They think about their problems, their fears, their limitations. They tell themselves stories about why they can't have what they want, why things are difficult, why life is hard. And then they wonder why their days feel heavy, why their lives seem stuck in the same patterns, why they feel tired before they even begin. But you can be different. You can choose different thoughts. You can speak different words to yourself. You can create a different reality. When you wake up tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you think about your to-do list, before you let the world rush in with all its demands and distractions, take a moment to speak 7 simple lines to yourself. These are not just words. These are declarations. These are statements of truth about who you are and what you are capable of creating. The first line you must speak to yourself is this: I am enough, exactly as I am right now. Say it out loud. Feel the words in your mouth. Let them sink into your heart. You see, most of us have been programmed from childhood to believe that we need to be different, better, more than what we are to be worthy of love, success, and happiness. We carry around this story that we are somehow lacking, that we need to fix ourselves before we can have what we want. But this is a lie. You are enough right now. You have always been enough. You were born enough. Your worthiness is not something you need to earn or prove. It is your birthright. When you start your day by acknowledging your inherent worth, you set a foundation of self-acceptance that allows everything else in your life to flow more easily. The second line to speak to yourself each morning is, I choose love over fear in every situation today. This is perhaps the most powerful choice you can make. In every moment of every day, you have 2 basic options. You can choose thoughts that come from love, or you can choose thoughts that come from fear. Love thoughts expand you, inspire you, connect you to others, and open you to possibilities. Fear thoughts contract you, limit you, separate you from others, and close you off from opportunities. When you wake up and declare that you will choose love over fear, you are setting an intention for how you will respond to everything that comes your way. You are deciding in advance that you will look for the good, that you will see opportunities instead of obstacles, that you will respond with kindness instead of defensiveness, that you will trust instead of doubt. The third line is, everything I need is already within me. This statement recognizes a profound truth about human nature. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of other people's decisions. You are not helpless. You have within you right now all the strength, wisdom, creativity, and love that you need to handle whatever life brings your way. Too often we look outside ourselves for answers, for validation, for permission to be who we want to be. We wait for the right opportunity, the right person, the right circumstances, but everything you need to create the life you want is already inside you. It has always been there. Your job is not to go out and find it somewhere else. Your job is to recognize it, nurture it, and express it. The fourth line to speak each morning is, I attract what I am, not what I want. This is a fundamental law of how life works. You don't attract what you want or what you think about occasionally. You attract what you are consistently being. If you want more love in your life, you must become more loving. If you want more abundance, you must cultivate an abundant mindset. If you want more peace, you must become more peaceful yourself. This puts the power entirely in your hands. Instead of trying to manipulate circumstances or convince other people to give you what you want, you focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts those things. When you wake up and remind yourself that you attract what you are, you take responsibility for the energy you bring to the world. The fifth line is, I am grateful for this day and all its possibilities. Gratitude is not just a nice feeling. Gratitude is a creative force. When you begin your day in gratitude, you align yourself with the creative power of the universe. You open your mind to see opportunities that you would otherwise miss. You attract more experiences to be grateful for. But gratitude for this new day goes beyond just being thankful. It's about recognizing that this day is a gift. You have been given another 24 hours to create, to love, to grow, to contribute. This day has never existed before and will never exist again. It is completely unique, full of potential, waiting for you to bring your gifts to it. When you speak this line each morning, you shift from taking your days for granted to recognizing them as the precious opportunities they truly are. You move from a mindset of obligation to a mindset of possibility. The sixth line to declare each morning is, I release all need to control outcomes and trust in the process of life. This might be the most difficult line for many people because we have been taught that we must control everything to be safe and successful. We try to control other people, control circumstances, control outcomes. And when things don't go according to our plans, we feel frustrated, anxious, and defeated. But here's what I want you to understand. You are not in control of outcomes. And that's actually good news. You are in control of your thoughts, your words, your actions, your energy, your responses. You are in control of who you choose to be. But you cannot control how other people respond. You cannot control timing. You cannot control all the variables that affect outcomes. When you release the need to control outcomes, you free yourself from enormous amounts of stress and anxiety. You can put your energy into what you can control, being your best self, and trust that life will take care of the rest. This doesn't mean being passive. It means being actively engaged in doing your part while remaining unattached to specific results. The seventh and final line to speak to yourself each morning is, I am here to give my gifts to the world. You have something unique to offer. There has never been anyone exactly like you before, and there will never be anyone exactly like you again. You have a combination of experiences, perspectives, talents, and love that is completely original. But many people go through their entire lives without ever really giving their gifts. They get caught up in trying to be what others expect them to be, trying to fit in, trying to be safe. They hide their uniqueness instead of celebrating it. They keep their gifts locked away instead of sharing them freely. When you wake up and remind yourself that you are here to give your gifts to the world, you connect with your true purpose. You remember that your life is not just about getting things for yourself. It's about contributing something meaningful. It's about making a difference, however small it might seem. Now, you might be wondering why these 7 lines are so powerful. Why not just think positive thoughts occasionally throughout the day? Why not just try to be optimistic? The answer lies in understanding how your mind works. Your subconscious mind is like a garden. Whatever seeds you plant in it will grow. If you plant seeds of doubt, worry, and limitation, that's what will grow in your life. If you plant seeds of confidence, trust, and possibility, that's what will grow instead. But here's the key. Your subconscious mind is most receptive to new programming in those first moments after you wake up, before your conscious analytical mind takes over. In those first few minutes, you have direct access to your deeper mind. This is when you can most effectively plant new seeds. When you consistently speak these 7 lines to yourself each morning, you are programming your subconscious mind with empowering beliefs. You are literally rewiring your brain for success, happiness, and fulfillment. Over time, these statements become your automatic way of thinking. They become part of who you are. But let me be clear about something. This is not about positive thinking as a way to avoid reality or pretend that challenges don't exist. This is about choosing which reality you want to create. Challenges will still come. Difficulties will still arise. But when you start each day with these empowering statements, You approach challenges from a position of strength instead of weakness, from confidence instead of fear, from possibility instead of limitation. Let me share with you what happens when you make this a daily practice. First, you'll notice that your mood throughout the day becomes more stable. Instead of being at the mercy of external circumstances, you'll find that you maintain a sense of centeredness and peace, regardless of what's happening around you. Second, you'll start to notice opportunities that were always there but that you couldn't see before. When your mind is programmed with empowering beliefs, it becomes like a spotlight, illuminating possibilities and solutions that were hidden in the shadows of your limiting thoughts. Third, you'll find that your relationships improve. When you start your day by acknowledging your own worth and choosing love over fear, you naturally show up differently in your interactions with others. You'll be less defensive, more generous, more present. People will respond to this energy and want to be around you more. Fourth, you'll begin to trust yourself more. When you consistently remind yourself that everything you need is within you, you'll stop looking to others for validation and permission. You'll make decisions more quickly and confidently. You'll trust your instincts and follow your heart. Fifth, you'll experience more synchronicities and what some people call good luck. This isn't magic. It's simply that when you align your thoughts and energy with positive expectations, you become more aware of opportunities and more likely to take action when they appear. Now, I want to address the skeptics among you who might be thinking, this sounds too simple. How can just saying 7 lines change my life? And I understand your skepticism because we live in a culture that believes that change has to be complicated, difficult, and require enormous effort. But the truth is that the most powerful changes often come from the simplest practices. Think about it. What determines the direction of a massive ship? It's not the size of the ship or the power of the engine. It's a small rudder that can be moved by one person. Your thoughts are the rudder of your life. Small changes in your thinking can create massive changes in your experience. And the key is consistency. You can't speak these lines once or twice and expect your life to transform. You must make this a daily practice. Just like brushing your teeth or eating breakfast, you must commit to speaking these words to yourself every single morning, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what's happening in your life, regardless of whether you believe them at first. And that's important to understand. You don't have to believe these statements completely when you first start saying them. In fact, if your life has been challenging, you might resist them at first. Your mind might say, this is silly. This isn't true. I'm not enough. I can't trust life. That's normal. That's just your old programming trying to maintain control. But keep saying the lines anyway. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's true and what's repeated. It simply accepts as reality whatever you consistently tell it. When you persistently speak these empowering statements, they gradually become your new truth, your new reality. Let me tell you about the science behind this. Neuroscientists have shown us that our brains are constantly rewiring themselves based on our thoughts and experiences. This is called neuroplasticity. Every time you think a thought, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with that thought. The more you repeat a thought pattern, the stronger and more automatic it becomes. This means that your habitual thoughts literally shape the structure of your brain. If you consistently think thoughts of limitation, fear, and inadequacy, you strengthen those neural pathways and make those thoughts more automatic. But if you consistently think thoughts of empowerment, love, and possibility, you strengthen different pathways and make those thoughts more automatic instead. The 7 lines I'm giving you are designed to create new neural pathways aligned with success, happiness, and fulfillment. Each morning when you speak these words, you are literally rewiring your brain for a better life. But beyond the neuroscience, there's something even more profound happening. When you speak these lines, you are connecting with a power greater than your individual self. You are aligning with the creative force of the universe. You are acknowledging that you are part of something magnificent, something purposeful, something loving. You see, most people live their lives as if they are separate from everyone and everything else. They believe they have to struggle and fight and compete to get what they need. They believe that resources are limited. that there's not enough to go around, that someone else's success diminishes their own possibilities. But when you speak these 7 lines each morning, you connect with a different understanding. You realize that you are not separate from the creative power of life. You are an expression of it. You are not competing for limited resources. You are connected to infinite abundance. You are not alone in your struggles. You are supported by the same intelligence that grows flowers and moves planets. This connection gives you access to wisdom, creativity, and solutions that your individual mind could never generate on its own. When you align with this greater power, you become a channel for miracles in your life and in the lives of those around you. Now, let me give you some practical guidance on how to make this work most effectively. First, choose a specific time each morning to speak these lines. I recommend doing this as soon as you wake up, before you get out of bed, before you check your phone, before you start thinking about your day. Make it the very first thing you do. Speak the lines out loud if possible. There's something powerful about hearing your own voice declare these truths. If you can't speak out loud because others are sleeping nearby, speak them silently but with intention and feeling. Don't rush through them. Take time with each line. Feel the meaning behind the words. Allow yourself to experience the truth of each statement, even if it's just for a moment. Second, write these lines down and keep them where you can see them. Put them on your bathroom mirror, in your car, on your computer. The more you see these words throughout your day, the more they will become part of your consciousness. Third, be patient with yourself. If you've been thinking limiting thoughts for years or decades, it's going to take time to establish new patterns. Don't expect overnight transformation, but do expect gradual, consistent improvement. Trust the process and stay committed to the practice. Fourth, notice what changes in your life as you continue this practice. Keep a journal if you're inclined to write. Pay attention to shifts in your mood, your relationships, your opportunities, your overall experience of life. Celebrate these changes, no matter how small they might seem. Let me also address what might happen when you first start doing this. You might experience resistance from your old way of thinking. You might have days when you forget to say the lines, or when you say them but don't feel them. You might even have days when your circumstances seem to contradict everything you're declaring. This is all normal and expected. Change is rarely a straight line upward. There will be ups and downs, progress and setbacks. The key is to keep returning to the practice. Keep speaking these lines, regardless of what's happening in your external world. Remember, you're not trying to use these statements to avoid problems or pretend that difficulties don't exist. You're using them to maintain your connection to your highest self, regardless of circumstances. You're choosing to respond to life from a place of strength and wisdom rather than from fear and limitation. And here's something beautiful that will happen as you continue this practice. You'll start to naturally think and speak more positively throughout the day. The empowering beliefs you plant each morning will begin to influence all your thoughts and conversations. You'll find yourself encouraging others, seeing the good in situations, and approaching challenges with confidence and creativity. You'll also become more aware of the thoughts and words of others. You'll notice how often people speak limitation over their lives without realizing it. You'll hear how frequently others declare what they can't do, what's wrong with their lives, why things are difficult. And you'll be amazed that you used to think and speak the same way. This awareness will help you maintain your new patterns. When you hear limiting thoughts and words from others, instead of being pulled into their negativity, you'll be reminded of the power of choosing different thoughts and words. One of the most beautiful aspects of this practice is that it doesn't require you to change your entire life all at once. You don't need to quit your job, move to a different city, or make dramatic changes to see results. You simply need to change how you start each day, and that change will gradually transform everything else. Your 7 lines each morning become like drops of water on a stone. One drop doesn't seem to make any difference, but thousands of drops over time can wear away the hardest rock. Your consistent morning declarations will gradually wear away the limiting beliefs that have been holding you back and replace them with empowering truths that set you free. Think about what your life could look like 6 months from now if you commit to this practice. Think about waking up each day feeling confident and excited about the possibilities ahead of you. Think about approaching challenges with curiosity instead of anxiety. About responding to difficult people with compassion instead of defensiveness. About trusting in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Think about the relationships you could create when you no longer need others to validate your worth. Think about the opportunities you might pursue when you're no longer afraid of failure. Think about the contributions you could make when you're connected to your unique gifts and purpose. This is not fantasy or wishful thinking. This is what becomes possible when you consistently program your mind with empowering beliefs. This is what happens when you choose to start each day by connecting with the truth of who you really are. The 7 lines I've shared with you are not magic formulas. They are reminders of truths that have always existed within you. They are ways of reconnecting with your authentic self, your highest nature, your unlimited potential. You came into this world with infinite possibilities. You were born with the capacity for love, creativity, wisdom, and contribution. But somewhere along the way, you may have forgotten this truth. You may have accepted limitations that were never really yours. You may have believed stories about yourself that were never true. These 7 lines are your daily invitation to remember who you really are. They are your opportunity to reclaim your power, to reconnect with your purpose, to recreate your reality. So tomorrow morning when you wake up, before you do anything else, speak these 7 lines to yourself. I am enough exactly as I am right now. I choose love over fear in every situation today. Everything I need is already within me. I attract what I am, not what I want. I am grateful for this day and all its possibilities. I release all need to control outcomes and trust in the process of life. I am here to give my gifts to the world. Speak them with conviction. Speak them with feeling. Speak them as declarations of truth, not as hopes or wishes. And then watch as your life begins to transform in ways that will amaze and delight you. Your life is waiting for you to claim it. Your potential is waiting for you to express it. Your gifts are waiting for you to share them. It all begins with 7 simple lines spoken to yourself each morning. It all begins with your decision to start your days by connecting with the magnificent truth of who you really are. The power to change your life is in your hands. Right now, the ability to create the experiences you want is available to you this very moment. All you have to do is choose different thoughts, speak different words, and align with the unlimited possibilities that exist within you. Your journey to a transformed life begins tomorrow morning with 7 simple lines. Make the commitment now. Your future self is counting on you. There's something magical that happens when you become consistent with this practice. After about 30 days of speaking these 7 lines every morning, you'll notice that your entire energy field begins to shift. People will comment that you seem different, more peaceful, more confident. You won't be trying to impress anyone or prove anything to anyone. You'll simply be operating from a different frequency, a higher vibration that naturally attracts better experiences. This shift happens because you've literally been reprogramming your subconscious mind to operate from abundance instead of scarcity, from love instead of fear, from possibility instead of limitation. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what you tell it and what actually happened. It simply accepts what you consistently feed it as reality and then works to create experiences that match that reality. When you consistently tell your subconscious that you are enough, that you choose love, that everything you need is within you, that you attract what you are, that you are grateful, that you trust life, and that you're here to give your gifts, your subconscious begins to filter all your experiences through these beliefs. It starts to notice evidence that supports these statements and filters out evidence that contradicts them. This is not about denial or ignoring problems. This is about training your mind to look for solutions instead of focusing on obstacles. When you encounter a challenge, instead of immediately thinking, why is this happening to me? or I can't handle this, your mind will automatically start looking for ways to grow from the experience, ways to use it as an opportunity to express your gifts, ways to respond with love instead of fear. The people in your life will begin to respond differently to you as well. When you stop looking to others to fill the empty spaces in your life, when you stop needing their approval to feel worthy, when you stop trying to control their behavior to make yourself feel safe, they have room to actually love you and appreciate you for who you are. Many people spend their entire lives in relationships where they're trying to get something from the other person. Validation, security, entertainment, purpose. But when you start each day by connecting with your own completeness, your relationships transform from neediness to appreciation, from taking to giving, from fear to love. Your work life will also begin to shift in remarkable ways. When you consistently remind yourself that you have gifts to give to the world, you'll find yourself naturally looking for ways to contribute more meaningfully in whatever you're doing. You might not change jobs immediately, but you'll start bringing a different energy to the work you're already doing. You'll begin to see your current position as a training ground, a place to practice expressing your highest self. You'll look for ways to serve others, to solve problems creatively, to bring more joy and efficiency to your workplace. And when you consistently operate from this energy of service and contribution, opportunities for advancement or new possibilities will naturally begin to appear. This is the law of giving and receiving in action. When you focus on what you can give, life finds ways to give back to you. But it doesn't happen because you're trying to manipulate outcomes. It happens because you've aligned yourself with the natural flow of abundance in the universe. Let me share something with you about timing that many people don't understand. When you begin this practice, you might not see immediate external changes in your life. You might still have the same job, the same relationships, the same living situation, and you might wonder if the practice is actually working. But internal transformation always precedes external transformation. The changes are happening inside you first in ways that you might not even be consciously aware of. You're developing new neural pathways, new emotional responses, new ways of perceiving and interpreting your experiences. These internal changes are like seeds planted in rich soil. You can't see what's happening underground, but there's tremendous growth and development taking place. And when the timing is right, when you've reached a certain level of inner transformation, the external changes will begin to manifest in ways that might surprise you. Trust this process. Don't judge the effectiveness of your morning declarations based on whether your external circumstances change immediately. Judge them based on how you feel throughout your days, how you respond to challenges, how you treat the people in your life, how much peace and joy you experience moment to moment. Here's another important aspect of this practice that I want you to understand. It works best when you approach it with a sense of play and lightness, rather than with intense seriousness or desperation. If you speak these lines each morning with a heavy energy of, I have to make this work because my life is falling apart, you're actually contradicting the very messages you're trying to install. Instead, approach your 7 lines with curiosity and gentle expectation. Think of it as an experiment in consciousness. You're testing what happens when you consistently choose empowering thoughts over limiting ones. You're exploring what becomes possible when you align your mind with love, abundance, and possibility. This playful approach keeps you from becoming attached to specific outcomes and timelines, which is actually crucial for allowing the transformations to unfold naturally. When you're desperately attached to making something happen, you create resistance. When you're gently expectant and open to possibilities, you create flow. There will be mornings when you don't feel like saying the lines. You might wake up in a bad mood, dealing with a crisis, or simply feeling resistant to the practice. These are actually the most important times to speak your 7 lines. This is when your old programming is fighting hardest to maintain control. And this is when your commitment to new patterns is most crucial. On these difficult mornings, you don't have to feel the truth of the statements. You don't have to believe them completely. You simply need to say them. Think of it as taking your mental vitamins. Even when you don't feel like taking vitamins for your physical health, you take them anyway, because you know they're good for you. Treat your 7 lines the same way. The cumulative effect of consistent practice, even on the days when you don't feel like doing it, is what creates lasting transformation. Every single time you choose to speak these empowering words, instead of defaulting to old mental patterns, you're strengthening new neural pathways and weakening old ones. As you continue this practice over months and years, you'll begin to understand something profound about the nature of reality. You'll realize that there's no fixed objective reality out there that you're simply responding to. You'll understand that reality is much more fluid and responsive to consciousness than you previously believed. Your thoughts, emotions, and expectations are constantly interacting with the field of possibility around you, influencing what opportunities appear, what people come into your life, what solutions present themselves to your challenges. When you consistently program your consciousness with empowering beliefs, you literally begin to live in a different reality than someone who programs their consciousness with limiting beliefs. This understanding will give you tremendous confidence in your ability to create positive change in your life. You realize that you're not at the mercy of random circumstances or other people's decisions. You're an active participant in creating your experience through the consciousness you choose to cultivate. Your 7 morning lines become your daily tool for consciously participating in the creation of your reality. They're your way of setting the frequency you want to broadcast into the world and the frequency you want to attract back to you. Remember, this practice is not about perfection. You don't need to say the lines at exactly the same time every morning. You don't need to feel completely positive all day long. You don't need to never have another negative thought or challenging experience. You simply need to consistently return to these empowering statements each morning as your foundation. This practice is about progress, not perfection. It's about gradually shifting the dominant patterns of your consciousness in a more positive direction. It's about training your mind to default to empowerment instead of limitation, to love instead of fear, to possibility instead of impossibility. Every morning that you speak these 7 lines, you're making a deposit in the bank account of your consciousness. Over time, these deposits compound, creating a wealth of positive mental and emotional resources that you can draw upon whenever you need them. Your transformed life is not waiting for you somewhere in the future. It's available to you right now, in this moment, through the thoughts you choose to think and the words you choose to speak to yourself. Your 7 lines each morning are your daily invitation to step into that transformed life, one declaration at a time.
There is a stillness beneath all movement, a silence that cannot be broken by sound. And in this stillness, there is a presence that is not separate from you, but is you beyond form, beyond identity, beyond name. This presence is what I call universal awareness. And when you awaken to it truly and deeply, you discover a truth that humbles the mind and liberates the soul. All things are possible, not through effort or striving, but through alignment with this awareness that is already within you. You see, the world has trained you to believe in limits. It has taught you to measure your worth by achievement, to gauge your power by what you control, to define your reality by what you can touch and see. But these are not truths. These are dreams within dreams, illusions whispered by a mind afraid of its own immensity. You are not here to conform to those limits. You are here to remember that you are infinite. Universal awareness is not something to be attained, it is something to be remembered. It is the deep, abiding presence behind every breath, the silent witness to every thought, the unchanging essence behind every changing moment. It is the consciousness that knows no boundaries, the intelligence that moves galaxies and stirs the human heart with equal grace. When you live from this awareness, you no longer chase outcomes, you allow them. You no longer resist pain, you understand it. You no longer fear the unknown, you merge with it, knowing that what is unknown to the mind is already known by the soul. You begin to see that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a sacred dance to be surrendered to, with each step guided not by fear, but by inner clarity. There is no obstacle in your life that cannot be transcended from this place. Not because you become more powerful in the worldly sense, but because you realize that true power was never about control, it was always about presence. The power to be unmoved in the midst of chaos. The power to forgive what seemed unforgivable. The power to love without condition. This is not weakness. This is not passivity. This is the power of the divine remembering itself through you. All things are possible when you no longer identify with the small self, the one that clings to labels and defends its wounds. That self is not who you are. It is a costume you've worn for a time, a role you've rehearsed so often you began to believe the part, but you are not the part. You are the actor. No, even deeper, you are the stage. The spaciousness in which the play unfolds. You are not the wave. You are the ocean that gives rise to it. And from this oceanic knowing comes great freedom. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from resistance. Not freedom from life, but freedom within it. A tree does not resist the wind, it bends. The sun does not compete with the moon, it shines. You were never meant to struggle your way into peace. You were meant to become still enough to remember that peace is what you are. The mind will argue, but how do I live like this? How do I awaken to this truth? And the answer is not in more doing, but in deeper being. Sit in silence, breathe with presence. Watch your thoughts. As you would clouds passing through the sky, acknowledge them, but do not become them. Behind every thought is a thinker, and behind the thinker is awareness itself. That is where you reside. You are not the fear that visits you. You are not the doubt that clouds your vision. You are not the story that repeats itself in your mind. You are the stillness that sees them all and remains unchanged. And the more you rest in that stillness, the more your life begins to transform, not because you have forced it to, but because you have ceased interfering with the natural flow of your soul's wisdom. This is the miracle. When you let go of trying to fix yourself, you begin to heal. When you stop chasing love, it begins to find you. When you release the need to be understood, you become a space in which others understand themselves. And when you remember your divine nature, the world around you mirrors that remembrance back to you in ways both subtle and spectacular. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your possessions. You are not even your body. You are awareness itself, pure, vast, eternal. And from this awareness, all things emerge. Every answer you seek, every longing you feel, every truth you yearn to touch, it is all within you now, waiting, not to be earned, but to be seen. So breathe. Not to get anywhere, but to be here. Look within, not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. Surrender not in defeat, but in devotion to the intelligence that gave you life and sustains it even now. You are not separate from that intelligence. You are that intelligence. You are the presence behind your eyes, the silence between your thoughts, the breath within your breath. And from that place, beloved soul, all things are possible. And so as you linger in the awareness of your own divine stillness, you may notice something quietly arising, not a thought, not an emotion, but a gentle unfolding. It is the essence of knowing, older than words, deeper than reason. It is the sacred realization that life was never meant to be understood with the mind, but felt with the soul. The more you surrender to this realization, the more the boundaries between you and life begin to dissolve. There is no separation, only varying expressions of the same light. You do not need to strive to become one with the universe. You already are. It is not something to be achieved. It is something to be lived. And to live it is to walk with grace through every moment, as if each breath is a blessing, each encounter a mirror, each silence a sermon. When you stop rushing to the next experience, you begin to taste the fullness of the one you're in. Presence is not a destination. It is the return to the sacred in the ordinary. There is a kind of seeing that does not come from the eyes, a kind of knowing that does not arise from study. This is the vision of the soul. It perceives beyond appearances. It understands beyond logic. And when you learn to trust this vision, you stop asking life to explain itself. You begin to listen instead. And in that listening, the answers arise not in language, but in alignment. You are no longer led by circumstance, but by clarity. The illusion of time begins to soften here. You begin to sense that all that ever was and all that ever will be is held within this eternal moment. Regret loses its grip. Worry fades into irrelevance. Because there is only now. And in the now, nothing is missing. In the now, you are not lacking because the you that lacks is only an echo of a forgotten belief. The truth of you is whole, is vast, is already home. When you let go of needing to understand the path, you allow the path to unfold with grace. Life has a rhythm, a sacred geometry that we cannot manipulate but can merge with. Like a river carrying you forward, not by force but by surrender. The current knows the way. Your only task is to release the rocks of resistance, the anchors of judgment, the driftwood of comparison, and let yourself be carried by the knowing that lives deeper than your fear. You were not born to struggle upstream against your own nature. You were born to flow, to trust, to be danced by the rhythm of a cosmos that has never made a mistake. Even what you call detours are part of the design. Even the delays, the doubts, the falls, all of it belongs. Nothing is wasted in the eyes of the infinite. Even your ache is sacred because it is the doorway to compassion. Even your confusion is holy because it humbles the mind and opens the heart. To awaken to universal awareness is to drop the illusion that you are doing life. You begin to see that life is doing you, living you, breathing you, moving through you as a unique expression of Source. You are not the doer, but the done. Not the painter, but the canvas. Not the fire, but the light dancing upon the flame. And in that realization, you are free not because your circumstances have changed, but because your identity has dissolved. When identity dissolves, love remains. Not love as an emotion, but love as a state of being, a field, a frequency, a truth that does not rise and fall with conditions. This is not love that demands, it is love that allows. It is not love that seeks, it is love that sees. And to live in this love is to bless the world, not with your effort, but with your presence. Not with your perfection, but with your authenticity. There is no need to add anything to yourself. Nothing needs to be improved, polished, or proved. The oak does not envy the rose. The sun does not hurry to become the moon. You are not here to become a better version of yourself. You are here to become more fully what you already are, an unrepeatable expression of divine consciousness. And so I invite you in this very moment to soften, not to give up, but to give in to the wisdom that already lives within your being, to the truth that does not shout, but whispers in stillness. You will not find it in the noise of striving, but in the silence of surrender. And as you soften, something ancient begins to stir. Not something new arriving, but something timeless remembered. It is the gentle return to a home that was never gone, only veiled. This is not the awakening of a new self, it is the unveiling of the self that was always there beneath the noise, the self that does not grasp, does not chase, does not fear, because it knows. It knows that life is not a battleground but a garden, not a test but a teaching, and you are both the student and the sacred lesson being lived. There is nothing to escape when you awaken to your own awareness, because in that awareness, even your pain becomes holy. Even your confusion becomes a compass. The moments you once ran from become the very soil in which your soul takes root. When you stop labeling your experiences as good or bad, when you cease demanding that life fit your plan, you begin to see the deeper intelligence that underlies all things. You begin to trust, not blindly, but wholly. Trust is not passive. It is the highest form of participation. It is standing inside the fire of uncertainty and knowing that you are held. It is moving without guarantees, not because you are reckless, but because you are connected to something greater than outcomes. You are no longer living from fear of what may go wrong, but from reverence for what is eternally right. You were not sent here to accumulate, to compete, to dominate, or even to succeed by the world's definition. You were sent here to remember, to embody, to radiate. The true measure of a life well lived is not what you have gathered, but what you have become in the becoming. And when you become rooted in awareness, life itself becomes your sanctuary. The world may tell you to move faster, to work harder, to fix yourself into someone more acceptable, but the soul speaks in the opposite direction. The soul says, slow down, feel more, strip away the layers, rest in your being. The soul says you are not broken, you are blooming. You are not late, you are exactly on time. You are not lost, you are being guided from within by something far more intelligent than the mind. This is why so many feel empty after chasing what the world promised would bring fulfillment, because you cannot fill an eternal space with temporary things. No possession, no title, no recognition can take the place of presence. Presence is the soul's currency. It is what nourishes your being from the inside out. And it is found not in more, but in enough, not in striving, but in stillness. When you awaken to universal awareness, you stop living for validation and start living as a vessel for peace, a vessel for truth, a vessel for the light that does not flicker in storms. And you begin to notice that the things you once clung to begin to fall away, not because you forced them out, but because they no longer match the frequency of your being. What once felt essential begins to feel irrelevant. What once felt urgent begins to feel unnecessary. And in their place arises something quiet, something steady, something sacred. You begin to feel the pulse of divinity in ordinary moments, in the breeze that brushes your cheek, in the way the morning sun rests on the kitchen floor, in the tears that rise for no reason at all, except that your heart has been touched by something wordless. You are no longer looking for signs. You are living as the sign. And then something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to see the divine not only in yourself, but in everyone and everything. The one who annoyed you becomes your teacher. The one who hurt you becomes your mirror. The one who loved you becomes a reminder of the love that lives within you always. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is wrong. It is all part of the holy unfolding. You are not here to conquer life. You are here to be in communion with it, to enter into a sacred conversation with existence itself, where every moment speaks, every silence sings, and every heartbeat becomes a prayer. You were not born to master life. You were born to remember that life, and you are not two separate things. You are life. You are awareness expressing itself in form. And so, beloved soul, breathe, be, trust the process, not because it is easy, but because it is divine. Know that as you live from this space of universal awareness, you are not missing out. You are merging with the infinite. You are not falling behind. You are falling into grace. And as grace gathers around your being like morning mist rising over quiet fields, you begin to feel the beauty in simply existing, not accomplishing, not striving, just existing. The leaves do not apologize for falling. The moon does not try to outshine the Sunday. They fulfill their purpose by simply being true to what they are, and so do you. You begin to notice how the mind, conditioned by the past and projected into the future, is forever busy trying to become. It says, if only I had that, if only I were more like this, then I would be complete. But universal awareness speaks with a different voice. It says, there is nothing to add, there is nothing to reach. All that you seek is already present in the stillness of your being. This is why great spiritual masters spoke in riddles and paradoxes, because the truth they carried could not be reduced to logic. It had to be felt. It had to be lived. Lao Tzu said, he who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know. And yet in this silence, everything becomes clear. When you sit with yourself long enough to become familiar with your own essence, clarity is no longer something you search for. It becomes the atmosphere you breathe. And the more you rest in that atmosphere, the more you realize that peace was never something to be protected, but something to be allowed. You were never meant to guard your heart like a fortress. You were meant to let it bloom like a field of wildflowers, open and unafraid. Pain may visit, yes. Disappointment may pass through. But they cannot stay, not when you are living from the place that welcomes all things and clings to none. From this presence, you begin to move differently. You begin to listen with your whole being, not just your ears. You begin to speak from the soul, not from the script. You are no longer interested in being right. You are interested in being real. You begin to notice that arguments lose their appeal because the need to defend is born of fear, and fear no longer feels like home. You also begin to realize that healing is not a destination. It is a way of walking, a way of being with yourself gently, moment by moment, not demanding progress, not measuring worth, but honoring the sacred rhythm of your own becoming. In universal awareness, healing is not something you do. It is something that happens naturally when you stop interfering, when you stop trying to force the petals open and simply let them unfold. And what unfolds is not always easy. Sometimes it is grief rising to be held. Sometimes it is loneliness revealing your forgotten connection. Sometimes it is the truth breaking through the walls you built to protect yourself. But no matter what comes, it comes not to punish you, but to purify you, to bring you back to what is real, what is eternal, what cannot be shaken. There is a light in you that does not flicker, a presence in you that does not fade, a truth in you that does not tremble no matter how loud the world becomes. And when you live from that space, not visit, but live, then everything around you begins to shift. Not because you are fixing the world, but because you are no longer at war within yourself. And this inner peace becomes a ripple, a frequency, a quiet revolution that touches others, not through effort, but through energy. You do not have to convince them. You do not have to teach them. You simply have to be. Fully, freely, authentically, your presence becomes the teaching. Your stillness becomes the transmission. Your life becomes a silent prayer that says to the world, it is safe to come home. Home is not a place, it is a state of consciousness. It is a space where you no longer seek to be more, because you remember you are already whole. It is where you stop trying to fit in and start allowing yourself to unfold. It is where the fear of being misunderstood no longer silences your truth. And in that space, in that sacred returning, you finally exhale. And in that long-awaited exhale, gentle, sacred, complete, you feel the soul returning to the throne it never left, not to rule, but to rest, not to dominate, but to dwell. It sits quietly in the heart's inner sanctuary, radiating the calm certainty of something that has never been confused. And in its silence, it teaches without words. You were never meant to strive your way into peace. You were only meant to stop striving long enough to remember that peace has always been your nature. As this remembrance deepens, the pace of life begins to slow, not because the world has changed, but because your relationship with it has. You stop racing time, you stop chasing outcomes. You stop living as if joy were a prize hidden at the end of effort. You realize instead that joy is not something you earn, it is something you allow when you drop the heavy armor of becoming and simply arrive. Arrival is not a place, it is a presence. It is the moment when you no longer need the world to understand you, because you have understood yourself. It is the moment when you stop performing and start expressing, when you stop grasping and start receiving, when you no longer ask life, what can I get, but instead whisper, how can I serve? And in that whisper, the universe leans in because it recognizes one of its own. You are no longer the seeker, you are the seer. No longer the question, you are the space in which all questions dissolve. And from that space, life begins to unfold, not as a burden, but as a sacred offering. A dance choreographed by the same force that arranges the stars and stirs the tides. There is a profound humility that arises here, not the kind born of shame, but of awe. You begin to bow, not out of fear, but out of reverence, to the tree, to the stranger, to your own breath. You see God in everything, not as a figurehead, but as a frequency, not as a doctrine, but as a presence that permeates all things, unconfined, undefended, and unimaginably vast. You stop needing to be right, you stop needing to be seen, you stop needing to be more, because you no longer derive your identity from the outside world. You have touched the infinite within. And once you've touched that space, you can never truly go back to sleep. You may forget again, yes, but the forgetting is never final. The thread has been tied, the call has been heard. And even when you wander, it echoes through every moment of disconnection, whispering gently, come back, come home. Coming home is not about returning to something external. It is about sinking inward. It is about learning to sit still with the truth of your own being until even the loneliness becomes a kind of company, until even the emptiness begins to sing. Because in that sacred stillness, the false falls away, and what remains is so honest, so vast, so beautifully unadorned that it breaks you open, not into pieces, but into peace. Peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of clarity. The knowing that you are not the storm, you are the sky, that you are not the wound, you are the witness, that you are not the momentary darkness, you are the eternal light through which even the darkness becomes visible. And from this light you begin to live, not perform, not survive, but truly live. Not because you have found the answers, but because you have let go of the need for them. You are no longer the prisoner of your past, nor the hostage of your future. You are the eternal now, the sacred awareness in which all time dissolves into presence. Here, life becomes simple again. Not easy, perhaps, but simple. You eat when you're hungry. You rest when you're tired. You speak when the soul rises. You act not from obligation, but from alignment. And in this sacred simplicity, you rediscover something the world had taught you to forget, that just being is enough, that your very presence aligned with truth is your greatest offering. And as the presence deepens and your soul settles into its natural rhythm, you begin to see life not as a series of events to manage, but as waves of meaning to experience. There is a quiet revelation in this way of seeing, a holy recognition that every moment is infused with intention, every encounter is laced with divine choreography. Even the mundane becomes magnificent when viewed through the lens of awareness. Washing the dishes, folding clothes, walking across a room, these too become prayers when done in presence. You begin to see that you were never meant to live life from the neck up, analyzing, calculating, controlling. You were meant to live from the whole of your being, from the heart that beats before you think, from the breath that arrives without command, from the silence that holds all answers without ever needing to speak. You are not a machine. You are not a role. You are not an idea. You are a living, breathing extension of universal intelligence made visible in form. And so the healing continues not because you're fixing yourself, but because the parts of you that once lived in exile are finally being welcomed home. Shame loses its grip when met with truth. Fear unravels when held in stillness. The inner critic, once so loud, becomes quiet when it realizes it no longer needs to protect you from your own worthiness. You are safe now not because the world has guaranteed it, but because you have stopped abandoning yourself. You no longer betray your peace to please the noise. You no longer override your inner knowing for outer validation. You have become your own sanctuary, your own refuge, your own unwavering home. From here, relationships transform. You stop needing people to complete you. You start loving them as reflections of the love you found within. You release the grip of possession and open the hand of presence. You begin to listen, not to respond, but to receive. You no longer speak to be heard, but to connect. And every connection becomes sacred when it is rooted in truth. Even your pain, now held in awareness, becomes a teacher instead of a tormentor. You look back on your past, not with regret, but with reverence. Every wound led you closer to this remembrance. Every fall was a part of your rising. Nothing was wasted. The tears you shed watered the ground for your awakening. The loneliness you feared became the doorway to communion with all that island. And as this communion deepens, you begin to feel the presence of the eternal in all things. Not just in meditation, but in the sound of children laughing, in the weight of dusk settling over the hills, in the eyes of a stranger who smiles without a word. Everything begins to hum with the quiet language of the sacred, not in spectacle, but in subtlety, not in thunder, but in breath. You do not need more to be more. You do not need to reach further to be full. You do not need to ascend into some spiritual ideal to be worthy of your own love. Worthiness was never in question. You were loved before you learned how to be lovable. You were chosen before you knew there was a path to walk. You were whole before the world handed you its conditions. And now you remember. The remembering does not require effort. It requires surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of illusion. Let go of who you thought you needed to be. Let go of the image you were taught to project. Let go of the resistance to your own beauty. You are not here to fit in. You are here to shine so fully that others remember they are light too. And from that light, life begins to move with you, not against you, not around you, but with you, as if every step you take is matched by a divine response, as if the wind knows your name, as if the stars lean in when you speak, because they do, because you are not separate from any of it. And now, as the light of this journey gathers like the final warmth of a setting sun, you stand not at the end, but at a beginning, ancient, eternal, and entirely your own. Not the kind of beginning the world praises with banners and milestones, but the sacred kind, the quiet return to what never left. The soul does not count time in years, but in awakenings. And you, beloved soul, have remembered. You have remembered that your worth is not contingent, your beauty is not borrowed, your truth is not on trial. You have remembered that presence is power, that love is not something you must seek, but something you are. You have remembered that the awareness within you is not limited by your name, your past, or your form. It is vast, it is timeless, it is holy. You do not need to be anything more than you are to be complete. That lie has exhausted itself in your being. You no longer chase the reflection in the water you drink deeply from the stillness. You no longer barter your peace for applause. You have found a deeper music, a quieter song, one that plays not on stages but in the center of your chest, in your breath, in your being. You see now that there was never a separation, only a forgetting. And in this sacred remembering, everything has changed even though nothing needed to. You are not ascending into something new. You are dissolving into what has always been. You are not rising above life. You are sinking fully into it. The leaves, the laughter, the silence between words, they have all become sacred again. And so you walk not with urgency but with reverence. Each step a prayer, each moment an offering. You no longer need to convince life to bless you because you realize life is made of blessing. Every breath is an answer. Every stillness is a sanctuary. Every ache is a doorway to deeper love. You are no longer a seeker, you are a seer. You are no longer waiting, you are allowing. You are no longer lost, you are home. You've tasted the truth that cannot be unlearned, the presence that cannot be earned, the light that cannot be extinguished. And now you know. All things are not only possible, they are already unfolding perfectly through the intelligence that breathes through you, walks with you, and never left you, not for a single heartbeat. This is not the end. This is the awakening. And in this awakening, you are not becoming anything. You are remembering everything. So walk now with open hands. Speak now with a quiet heart. Rest now in the holy center of your own being. And remember, always, all things are possible with universal awareness. And that awareness is you. There is a soft, ancient voice that echoes in the quiet of your soul, a voice that cannot be drowned out by the noise of the world, no matter how loud the world becomes. It whispers not in words, but in knowing. It does not plead for attention, nor does it seek to be proven. It simply is. And it has been with you since the beginning, since before your first breath, before your name was spoken, before you ever learned to question your worth. That voice, beloved, is your essence. And it has only one message to offer. You are here to remember who you truly are. Not to become, not to earn, not to strive, but to remember. For what you have forgotten is not something outside of you, waiting to be discovered like treasure buried beneath the sands of time. What you have forgotten is the sacred truth etched into the fabric of your very being that you are divine, not in theory, not in metaphor, but in the deepest, most literal sense. You are the breath of the infinite, poured into form, moving through time only to find your way back to timelessness. The world did not teach you this. The world taught you to forget. It taught you that your value is contingent, that your worth is conditional, that who you are must be proven by what you achieve, by how you look, by how others respond to your presence. It taught you that love must be earned, that joy is the result of success, that peace is something you find when everything finally aligns. But these teachings are not truths, they are illusions passed down through generations of forgetfulness. And now, in this sacred moment, you are being called to remember that you are not your name nor your story. You are not your pain nor your past. You are not your successes nor your failures. These are garments the soul wears for a while, but they are not the soul. The soul is unclothed, unbound, untouched. It is the eternal presence behind the mask, the stillness behind